All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Early Bar Football Podcast, episode number 7. It's Friday, the 20th of August. Another weekend of the Premier League is upon us. And obviously, most importantly, we're going to get into the bigger story that's got nothing to do with football that I'm not sure I can even say in the first 30 seconds if this is going to go on YouTube. So we'll wait. We'll wait for that. But joining us today is Chrissy, Barnes, Tang. Leify's back. He's got a lot to say as well. Yes! And Jin. We'll start with some breaking news that's literally just broken at the time of recording. And that is that Arsenal have signed Aaron Ramsdale from Sheffield United. Obviously, a huge signing. Massive signing. This is a game changer for Arsenal. We've got a resident half Arsenal fan with us, Chrissy. So, Chrissy, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I'm not happy with it, to be honest. I'm not happy with it because I just think it's a waste of 24 million. It's 24 million that really we should be spending on the defence. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Leno didn't cover himself in glory against Brentford on Friday. And to be fair, he has been on a bit of a decline since the end of last season and whatnot. But I still think we should have, strengthened the back four, especially the right back position. Like I said in the last episode, what is it? We got Bellerin, Chambers, and Cedric at right back. They're not going to do anything. They are pretty much mid-table standard right backs. So yeah, I'm not happy with this sign of Ramsdale. To be fair, I'm not too mad that we've signed Ødegaard. Ødegaard is a good player, and he proved it at the tail end of last season for Arsenal. But again, with Ødegaard, will that dampen the development of Smith Rowe? So. Yeah, I just think Arsenal has kind of spent money in the wrong places.
Ødegaard's a very Arsenal signing, isn't it? Let's just sign a lot of attacking midfielders, same positions. That's what they used to do all of those years. What do you think about Ramsdale to Arsenal, Barnes?
The fee is high. I think the fee is definitely high. 24 million for a player that I don't know. This is from someone I'm not a Sheffield United, not a Bournemouth fan, so I can't say I've watched lots and lots of Aaron Ramsdale. But just from highlights and things like that, I'm seeing him. On match days, I don't think he's covered himself in glory. However, as I said on the previous pod, he is young. He can get better. He can be coached. He is English. And he does have potential. I don't think he would have been picked in that England squad for no reason. He must have something about him. I'm not sure if he's good with his feet, but that could be a reason for Arteta picking him. But yeah, it's not a terrible side. Arsenal do need a goalkeeper. And as I was saying again on the last pod, I think Leno's been really poor now. Like Christy says, been declining for the last couple of seasons. So I don't think it's the worst signing, but I can see why Arsenal fans perhaps aren't particularly positive about it, especially as he's probably going to be playing in the number 2 role this season.
Number 2. That's going back to Josh Leify. We'll move on. Come on. We haven't got there yet.
Tang, a joke.
Yeah, Tang. When it comes to Ramsdale, obviously a lot of people, we probably mock him a bit here on the podcast. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's justified? Or is it a bit too far?
Well, he's had 2 seasons in the Premier League and he's, got relegated twice. It's obviously not his fault entirely that both teams got relegated, but for Arsenal to get a second choice goalkeeper with 2 years experience, who is really young, let's not forget, really young as a player and as a goalkeeper. And I think he's represented England pretty much throughout the age groups. So on paper, it's actually not a bad signing, but it's just the fact that it's Arsenal and they should be spending money elsewhere, I think, anyway. And I'm sure Chris and other Arsenal fans probably would agree.
I must say, as someone that used to play in goal, that I just really don't see it when it comes to Ramsdale. I really don't. People will point out last season, I saw Sheffield United fans on Twitter saying that, yeah, but he made some of the most saves in the Premier League and all that kind of stuff. Well, doesn't matter. You still lost games routinely, 3 or 4-0 last year. Now, and granted, that's not his fault, but there definitely were games. Even as a United fan, you watched some of the games when we played them last year. They absolutely should have been saving some of those goals. There are several goals last season where it goes in, you can go, keeper should save that. And for whatever reason,
he won.
Go on.
Sorry, Evan. I think he won Player of the Year, Wimbledon, Bournemouth, and Sheffield United, which kind of shows that he must be rated amongst his peers as well. You don't get bonus Player of the Year if you're a load of rubbish.
The thing is, in the Premier League, is that if you can several times in the season, like Henderson had it last season, there's no doubt Henderson's a good goalkeeper, but Henderson for United last year, the majority of the goals he conceded, you could have said he should probably do better there. You should probably save that. And that's enough, especially when you lose game 1-0, 2-0. That's enough. It only takes a couple of goals, right? I mean, what do you think about Ramsdale? Is he of the Arsenal level? Maybe he is. Maybe that's part of the problem of Arsenal life.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Owen, with it doesn't really, I'm not really sold on him. On the surface, it's not necessarily the goals that you see, because he's some of just the way he performed last year, some of the saves he's making and some of the mistakes he was making. But to be fair to him, he was playing in a Bournemouth side and a Sheffield United side who were down the table, had a lot to do. He could have forced him into a few mistakes, and like Ting said, he's obviously rated amongst his peers. He was picked in the England squad. He's obviously rated within the England setup, and by people who are in the know in football. So he must have ability. It would be interesting to see him in an Arsenal side that might not give up as many shots. Probably not far off, but might not give up as many shots. He might be able to flourish in a side. And I think he could. He's a young goalkeeper. Like he is young for a goalkeeper, 23, 24, however old he is. So he's got time to develop still. He's very young for a goalkeeper. I think it could end up looking like a bit of a bargain for Arsenal in the future if he does come good. Same way De Gea did at Manchester United. I could definitely see him flourishing in the next couple of years. But yeah, I'm not sold on the performances I've seen so far. But there obviously is potential there. He's definitely rated in the England setup, and like Ash said, rated at the clubs he was at before.
Ginge, lastly on Ramsdale, I mean, if he is making mistakes at, say, Sheffield United and Bournemouth, yes, he's making saves, but he's making mistakes. And you can argue that's something to do with pressure, not being able to manage pressure or concentration. Then what does that mean if he goes into an Arsenal side? Maybe he doesn't play every game, but maybe Arteta does decide to drop Leno and he comes in. If he's struggling to manage pressure at, say, Sheffield United, in an empty Sheffield United stadium, or for Bournemouth in a smaller stadium as well, how is he going to be able to manage pressure at the Emirates of a very demanding fan base in a side that's underperforming?
Honestly, don't know. I think it will be a struggle. But I think the guys touched on it for the first couple of years. I think it's going to be a struggle maybe to win people over. But I think for his actual development, I think it actually might hold him in good stead for the next decade, because I think you can't really sort of get close to that sort of pressure you're going to get at Arsenal, I think, in terms of because obviously the demands in terms of getting results are so high for the fan base that I think for him, personally, first 2 years are going to be a struggle. But if he gets through that, he might come out the other end of it being a very good goalkeeper. Because to be able to bounce back from that, you need the mentality to be able to perform and pick yourself up every week, especially if Arsenal are performing like they are on Friday. He's gonna have a lot to do for a good couple of seasons until they strengthen. So
he's certainly got a point to prove, hasn't he? He's got a point to prove. And look, I don't want to be one of those people that writes him off before he started. I know I've just slated him and said he's terrible, but it will remain to be seen. Sometimes it's with goalkeepers, it is a case of confidence, and it is a case of something clicking, and maybe Arsenal will be the right place for him. But time will only tell. That's a very difficult side to be going into right now, in a very pressurized position.
Yeah, especially in goal.
Yeah, that would be my concern. Go on, Judge.
Arsenal, I can't really. I mean, Chris, you'll know better than me. What do you think the last time Arsenal had a truly solid goalkeeper? Are we talking Lehmann? Is it that far back since they've had a proper number one, reliable number one?
Yeah, I'd probably say Lehmann, even though, to be fair, Lehmann did have his moments, but there was mainly either going mental at the opposition or whatnot.
Well, if Jens Lehmann's your last sound keeper.
I mean, Czech. We're knocking Czech a bit, but I think his age was.
He wasn't. He was barely better Czech at that point, was he? He was not.
He wasn't the better Czech that first came to Chelsea. And what was it? They only conceded 13, 14 goals in the Premier League season, which is unbelievable, by the way. But I don't think Arsenal have had a proper number one since Lehmann. I mean, some fans might argue Szczesny, but I just remember Szczesny having his moments where he was either casual or. I'm
still not even sold on Szczesny today, even though he's played. Sometimes it kind of baffles me that he plays for Juventus anyway. It's kind of a case of sometimes with goalkeepers, yes, obviously it's a critical position, it's a specialist position. But if you're in a team like a Juventus, where previously they were steamrolling the league, it's almost not as important, because they were just so far better. But when it gets a bit closer, like last season, suddenly that's when the position gets really important. So
it's a massive downgrade on Buffon as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't even know if even now if they'd be totally keen on Chesney. If there was a better option out there, maybe they would go for him. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It certainly is an interesting signing by Arsenal. Whether or not he will even play that much this season, he might just sit on the bench all season anyway. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll move on though. We'll talk about this week's Premier League preview. Obviously, it's match day 2 of 38. Oh, by the way, as well, a quick fantasy football sidebar here. Everyone, I think most people had a pretty good weekend last weekend, right? That's on this right now. So, I saw this is a point I wanted to pick up because Lakey triple captain in the first week. And in fairness, I said to you that I thought it was a terrible idea, but you triple captain Salah, which wasn't bad.
I wish I'd done Fernandes.
I know, but that's what I mean. I went to look on your side, and it's literally triple captain Salah right next to him. On vice captain is Bruno Fernandes.
I know.
If you triple captain first week and he gets a hat trick, you can't argue with that. You can't argue with that.
I'm quite new to the whole fantasy football thing, so it was a bit of a naive move, but I've got decent points total. But Fernandes, I'm still an hour in this week whether to put him as captain or not because they've both got Southampton and Burnley. Salah's got Burnley, so good goals there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. We'll start off actually talking about Liverpool-Burnley. Chrissy, actually, previously, Burnley have been a bit of a thorn in the side of Liverpool. They're the one that ended Liverpool's home unbeaten run last season. Any chance they could do it again?
It was a great result for them last season, managing to go to Anfield and beating Liverpool. But I think with the return of fans, and obviously, you can have a cop that's going to be up for it. I can see Liverpool just steamrolling them. I mean, you could sort of tell last weekend with Van Dijk back in the side that they just looked more assured and whatnot. And like from a Liverpool point of view, it was good that they got goals out of Jota, Firmino, and Salah last weekend. Like the only thing that you probably want this weekend is maybe to try and get a goal or two out of Sadio Mane to get him going for the season. But if Sadio Mane doesn't have a good season like he did last season, then obviously you've got Jota to replace him, and that. So I think Liverpool will steamroll Burnley this weekend.
Barnes, what do you think? Do you think Burnley have a chance at all, or with fans being back, is it just too much?
I don't know if it's because the fans are back. I think it's just because Burnley tend to have this thing, or they did last season, where they're so bad at the start of the season. I remember last season they were bottom, I think, after the first maybe like 6 games. It doesn't make any sense either because you think a Sean Dyche team is the same players year on year. The style doesn't change. There is no reason why they should come into the season cold or not on it. So, like Chris, I expect Liverpool to win. I mean, that's not a huge shout, but Liverpool did play well last week as well. A nice opening 2 fixtures as well for Liverpool, Norwich, and then coming off the back of that to Burnley. So, I expect a Liverpool win here, but Burnley did beat him last season, so you never know. Also, there's something about early kickoffs that's always mean they're quite a bad game, I feel. So, I don't know. It might be not as high scoring as potentially we think in terms of Liverpool getting a lot of goals. Maybe 1 or 2-0, but I expect Liverpool to win.
Also, as well, I think when it comes to Liverpool, it's obviously, yes, they've had Norwich and Burnley as their first 2 opening games, but then next week they've got Chelsea, which is a big game as well. So you'd hope that, I think they would be hoping they would get points on the board. What did you make of Liverpool last weekend, Tang? Were you impressed? Did they look back to their selves of the a couple of seasons ago?
I didn't watch the Liverpool game last week.
This is why we have you on the podcast. We have you on the podcast for pure analysis, and it's that kind of detail that I want.
Every time you come to about a game,
they played Norwich. They won.
3-0. They played well. No, Liverpool Norwich always has like Liverpool 3 or 4.
Well, I'll stop you there. Then, what game did you watch last week?
I watched Brighton Burnley last week.
What did you think of Brighton Burnley last week?
I think it was Potter's magic with his substitutions.
I didn't actually watch the game.
No, I watched Brighton Burnley. Burnley were very good first half, pretty solid, as Ash said there. Not really much sort of change in there for Burnley. Brighton were very poor. They were very poor. And then Potter brought on Jakob Moda, and then within about 20 seconds, he got an assist, and Neil Maupay scored 1-1. And then who did he bring on? He brought on Alexis McAllister, and within about 30 seconds, he scored.
You good player.
So very good substitution from Potter. Obviously, the best manager in the league, which we've discussed and all agreed on on this podcast. So I watched that game, but then in terms of this week, I think Arsenal.
Are you planning on watching a game this week?
I'm planning on watching Arsenal Chelsea. I think it'll be a good game, especially with Chelsea. Look really good. I watched the highlights of their game at Crystal Palace, and they look really good, really solid, and already look like they're there as like a team. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, like City, obviously were off it. Leeds, we've talked about, they were off it, but Chelsea look good, and Chelsea have quite tough fixtures. They've got before the end of September, they've got City, Spurs, and I think they've got Liverpool as well. And I think
next week.
Why it's a hard fixture list. They're in a really good position when other teams are like not with it and still sort of slowly getting into the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a bad time for Chelsea to be playing them, and Arsenal will obviously just need a massive rocket up their backside after last week's performance. So they've got something to prove, I think.
I think Arsenal could get absolutely hammered, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think it'd be embarrassing, especially if Lukaku starts. I mean, shifting it back to Liverpool, do you think, it's difficult to judge off one game, Leif, but did you think that Liverpool last week showed signs they can actually maybe compete this season?
I don't think you can tell after one game. I think they were solid. It was Norwich, so it is very difficult to tell. I can't see any beating them with the fans back in the stadium. My little Scouser friend's going to that this weekend from work. Shout out to Charlie. So I hope they lose just to make him miserable. But I can't see Burnley result there. It's going to be electric in Anfield, and with Van Dijk back, they do look like a different prospect at the back. They don't look as shaky at the back. They definitely don't look as shaky. So yeah, I can just see a comfortable Liverpool win there.
What do you think, Ginge, to round it up? What would be your prediction tomorrow? If you were putting a bet on, not that you can advocate gambling, I guess, on YouTube, but what would you do?
I agree. I think it's going to be a pretty steamroll win, I think, for Liverpool. I think maybe 3 or 4-0, I'd say. I think it's the buzz of the fans and stuff, and they look quite slick last week. And it's a similar sort of, it's not the same style, but it's a similar sort of calibre of team. No offence to Burnley, but it's a team that they should really.
And taken.
I should beat him, so I'll go 3-4-0.
3-4-0, nice. We'll move it to Arsenal Chelsea because I do want to get Chrissy's opinion on Arsenal. How did you describe Arsenal last time, Chrissy? In 3 words.
Amateur, disgraceful, pathetic.
Yeah, that was. I thought that was the case. Yeah. Do they have any chance, even though it's at home against Chelsea? Do they have any chance on Sunday?
I'll let you guys in on a little secret. I've made Lukaku my captain for this weekend. That's how much faith I have in Arsenal. I mean,
Arsenal will win then.
They probably will. They probably will keep me bottom of the fantasy league. Yeah, but yeah, no. After last week's performance, I have no faith in Chelsea under Tuchel. They're a different beast to what they were compared to when obviously Arsenal were in a bit of a crisis last season. Then obviously we played Chelsea at the Emirates, beat them 3-1 by playing the youngsters like Smith Rowe, Saka, and whatnot. But I think under Tuchel, Chelsea are a completely different beast, and I can see Chelsea putting at least 3 past Arsenal at the weekend, just because they got so much quality, and I can see Lukaku coming in and making an instant impact. Just because, I know there's been a lot of talks about Lukaku, especially from Chelsea and himself, for that matter, to say he's a bit more matured than what he was, where he was previously at them and previously in the Prem, and I can sort of agree to that as well. So yeah, I can see Chelsea putting at least 3 past Arsenal. Whether Arsenal score, I don't know, but I can't see Arsenal win. I can't even see Arsenal getting a point, to be honest.
Very optimistic. I like it.
Yeah, it's
optimistic. Yeah.
Every time we've gone to Chrissy on the podcast talking about Arsenal, he just goes, "They're terrible. They're pathetic. I don't think they're going to win." Ash, when it comes to Arsenal, of course, that's going to be the first game in the Emirates that's going to be at capacity since the pandemic. Look, the Arsenal fan base is the Arsenal fan base in the sense that they've got very lofty expectations that maybe aren't massively grounded, unless you're Chrissy Olive, that are grounded in reality.
I'm the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think the fans are going to stand for like a 3-4-0 result? I mean, what's that atmosphere even going to be like in the Emirates?
I think that's a really interesting question. Could have quite big bearing on the game. I imagine they'll be up for it. No worries. I think that'll be a good sort of. We'll see where Arsenal are at and where their fans are at with that kind of thing. Because I wouldn't be surprised if even if Chelsea start off a lot of possession, maybe not even a goal, the fans will get on the Arsenal players earlier. I mean, we've seen it before where Arsenal maybe go 1-0 down, the fans aren't happy. And you're right about the loftier expectations. I'm not sure, given their rebuilding, given the players they have, even if you look at their team sheets and compare them to say, let's even say the top 8 teams, it's not that great. It's not that great. It's probably, their team on paper should get about 8th place. That means you're going to lose games. On the game in general, Arsenal actually have quite a good record against Chelsea in the last couple of years. And I think the idea that, Chelsea are just going to go out there and destroy Arsenal. I mean, let's face it, we could all see it happening, and it is possible. But I think it might be a bit more of a tight game. I think the last couple of years has shown that. And I think Arsenal do have something to prove. I don't think, I said it on the last pod, but the sort of hysteria and hyperbole around Arsenal doesn't necessarily mean they're going to lose every game 5-0 all season. They will get better and they will improve, I think. And I think Chelsea still might win, but I think it'll be closer than maybe most people think. So I'll go 2-1 Chelsea.
Oh, close game. Tang, what do you think happens with Arteta if Chelsea completely blow Arsenal away? Just completely ignoring what Barnes just said. what happens, do you think, if, say Arsenal do lose 4-0? I mean, Arteta surely can't be sacked after 2 games, but is the pressure really well and truly on at that point?
Yes and no. It's unless you're Watford, that's, sacking the manager or talking about sacking the manager 2 weeks in is crazy. But Arteta's had time and he obviously won the FA Cup, and that should have been sort of where the Arsenal should have probably kicked on, and they haven't. That
was their best performance, wasn't it? I mean, they actually played really well in that FA Cup final.
And obviously, Arteta brings this style of football, which is all the tiki-taka passing, things like that, high fullbacks and things like that. But we're not really seeing that, I don't think. And there's a bit of a lack of identity with Arsenal, and that would worry me the most, considering how long he's been there. At least like under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I kind of have something now. You would think
there's progression,
and I just don't think Arsenal have that. I thought that we all thought they did, or were getting somewhere, and that's what worries me about Arteta and potentially getting the sack or the early bath.
Yes, imagine that.
Yes. Ash Barnes was the only one to say Arteta, I think. And
were you the first person to say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say, ask you, Leif, do you think Arteta is a good coach? Like, objectively, could you say he's a good coach, or is the jury still out on that?
No, I don't think you can on his track record. I did say the other day about he has won the FA Cup and stuff like that. So I don't think he's a bad coach, but it was interesting when you're talking about when United have Solskjaer. There was a lot of Arsenal fans when I think they beat us at Old Trafford, mocking the fact we had Solskjaer and they had Arteta and they won the way up.
It's the Ian Wright thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
when Ian Wright said, if Arteta was managing Manchester United, they'd be winning the title or something like that, which is outrageous.
Delusional gooners. I did used to enjoy watching Arsenal fans like have mental breakdowns watching the games, but it now it's not even enjoyable. I do feel sorry for Arsenal fans. I feel sorry for Arsenal's a club. It's a bit sad state of affairs, how far they've fallen. 5-0 Chelsea.
Yeah, but he does bring up a good point though, Ginge. He does bring up a good point in the sense that for us all growing up, like when you had Arsenal, you pretty much felt we're probably going to lose it, especially if it was say like at Highbury, because they never lost at Highbury. They very rarely lost anyway. And now it's kind of difficult because now there's like a younger generation. It's difficult to almost explain to them that like Arsenal used to be really good, and they won't believe it. Some even Man United fans don't believe like Man United used to be good. Like that amount of time has passed. I mean, do you ever see Arsenal getting back to that point where they could even be challenging again at all?
I think so, because they have got like an extraordinarily big base, haven't they? Fan base, and it is a big club. And you don't.
What does it take then? What would it take to get them to that point? Does it just take one player to turn things around?
I think I sort of said about the sort of Suarez effect with Liverpool. I mean, it might not. I don't think those sort of players maybe exist anymore. The sort of bargains that turn into world class. I don't think they're if they do exist, they're much harder to find now than they used to be. But I think there may be one or two players. They need that sort of like, you look at the United with Fernandes, they need that sort of like the player to come in like that with the mentality that just completely changes the way the dressing room thinks. You look at Man United like pre-Fernandes, didn't really have much. I don't know. They had a great team, but they didn't have the fight to win games. And now you can just see he drives everyone forwards. I think you look at Arsenal, they haven't really got that. That's what they need, is somebody like that. So I don't think they're too far away, because they've got quality. You've got, Smith Rowe, Saka. It's a decent team.
There's still Aubameyang, I guess. He's meant to be
good.
Meant
to be, yeah. I mean, he comes and goes. But I mean, in terms of like, in some areas, they are quite strong. It's just they need the rest of they need just maybe a couple of like strong players, and the rest of the players to start pulling their own weight. And then, I think they would maybe not challenge. I think they're maybe 3 to 5 years away. I think, from maybe getting back to challenging, but I think it's certainly not one of them things. It's never going to happen again. So I think it will.
I think
it's going to take time.
I think and I mean, I wouldn't know because obviously I'm not an Arsenal fan. Chrissy might be better answering this than me. But I think from my point of view, if I was an Arsenal fan, my feeling on, we need that one great player, is that they've had that a couple of times, but they always get sold. Whether they always get sold to City, whoever it may be, whether it's Fabregas, whether it's Van Persie, whether it's like even people like Nasri and all that kind of stuff, they all end up going in the end because Arsenal's just where they are. I mean, is that probably a fair assessment, Chrissy?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair assessment. I think the main problem at Arsenal is the ownership. I mean, the Kroenkes. That, to be honest, they're horrible people. They're absolutely horrible people. They're worth $8 billion and whatnot. And what is it? They're making people redundant in the middle of a pandemic, including the mascot that has been there for decades. And they was going behind the fans back by wanting this whole Super League thing. I think the main problem lies within them. And to be honest, I think like with even obviously I know people talk about Arteta a lot, but I think again, like I remember you brought up Owen, I think in either the last episode or the episode before, about Emery. Like Emery's actually a good coach and one. And I think it actually goes to prove that I generally think the players we got at Arsenal have egos. They have massive egos. They think they're better than what they actually are. And they're clearly, they're not good enough. They're mid-table players.
Yeah, I think so. It would be interesting to see if Arteta did end up leaving Arsenal, wherever his next job would be. If he was successful there, and then that's a couple of coaches then that have just not worked out at Arsenal but have success elsewhere. I want to talk about Manchester United because, of course, I do. I mean, this is it's the big club, right? Wow, yeah, exactly. Obviously, last weekend was a really impressive performance from Manchester United. As a United fan myself, I was concerned about Leeds on the opening day of the season. Even it being at Old Trafford, I thought, given our pre-season, given the lack of a pre-season, given players coming back at delayed stages, I was really worried about playing Leeds. And whilst Leeds were terrible, we completely blew them out the water. Barnes, where do you think Man United can go this season? I mean, realistically, can they challenge? It's difficult to judge off one game, but do you think they can challenge?
I think they can challenge. I think we've all mentioned when we were doing our top 4 predictions that we've all thought the top 4 is going to be tight. I have put them in 4th, and that's purely because I don't believe Solskjaer is the manager to win a team a league. But I'm not saying he's a bad manager. I just don't think he's the guy to take them maybe to that next elite level. But I think that the game against Leeds, they scored some really good goals. They outperformed, a bit of a boring point, they outperformed their XG by around 3 goals. That means they're scoring some fantastic goals. I think Fernandes, Pogba, Greenwood all turned up. Leeds, as Jack made a really good point actually on the last pod about them missing Calvin Phillips and sort of putting a centre-back in, centre defensive mid and just allowing Man United to run onto them. I think it'll be a different story at Southampton. I think Man United will win, but I think it'll be a lot tougher game. Saints' first game back in front of the fans. I think it's going to be I think Southampton signing James Ward-Prowse on that new contract is going to give them a bit of a boost as well. What's been quite a negative summer for them. They've let go a lot of players, but I think Hasenhüttl was a good manager and they could potentially cause Man U some problems, but I think they'll come through it.
Tang, last season Manchester United had an unbelievable away record. I think it's something like if we win, I want to say it's like 1 or 2 more games away from home this season. So our first couple of away games, we break the record for the amount of games unbeaten away from home. Do you think that's going to be the same this season, or do you think that was largely due to going to grounds that are empty last year?
I think that's a really good point to make. I think last season was obviously a very odd season, especially with no home fans and no fans in general. I think that definitely played a part. And I don't know. I think with Ollie, I just want to touch on Ash's point of, is he the man to win you the league when you're going up against people like Pep and Klopp and things like that? I don't know. And I think with Ollie, he's always one loss away from people just saying he's a terrible manager, he's got no experience.
It is a very divided fan base, even
he's
now.
He's just one loss away from that, or one bad performance. And I think that's a really important thing to sort of realise, that if Pep loses a game, City fans are kind of behind him. They're kind of like, oh, we lost, but we played the right way. Or, with Ollie, he doesn't really have much defence. He has to win games, otherwise there is a lot of people on his back.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, there have been games, even last season, like the Europa League final, which I think fundamentally he got it massively wrong in that final. But you're right. Even from day one, once Solskjaer was hired as the permanent manager, there were people saying that he isn't good enough or he's not at the level of Manchester United. Myself, I feel like he's proved a lot of those people wrong. I do think there's continued development, but there are certain people, I mean, we know certain people that just won't have it. They just will not have it, irrespective of success. I genuinely think if Solskjaer was to win a trophy, Solskjaer could win the league this season, and certain people would be like, no, he's still not good enough, which to me kind of baffles me, because that is the definition of being good enough, is that you came first. But I don't know, it's what it is.
Yeah, I saw that there was a fact, I think you probably circulated it, where in the previous 300 and odd games, United have scored 5 goals like once,
twice.
Or
yeah.
And then under Solskjaer, they've done it, was it 10 times or something? Or like
Cardiff, the first one.
Sorry?
Was it Cardiff, the first one? I think
probably, yeah. It's just like, that's good, but obviously he hasn't won a trophy. So it always comes down to the fact, trophies. We don't care that we're playing this sort of free football, which is kind of what they wanted especially after Van Gaal left and after Mourinho. United fans just wanted football, good, proper United football. Ollie's technically brought them that, and now
at times with Ollie, that's the thing.
At times, and now it's kind of like, okay, that's good, but where are the trophies? Like, that wasn't really what United fans were asking for at the time. They just wanted to see their old Man United, and so he's in a very tough position, I think.
Yeah. Leif, obviously, we didn't speak that much, because this is the first one you've been on this week, so you haven't mentioned about Leeds at the weekend. But first, I would like to ask, when it comes to last season, a lot of the time, especially away from home, but a lot of time last season, United did the 1-0, go 1-0 down, go 2-0 down, come back, win 2-1, win 3-2. We even did it at St. Mary's last year, went 2-0 down, 1-3-2. That was obviously very reminiscent of the Fergie era, in that you would go 1-0 down, 2-0 down. It doesn't matter. We'll still win the game. And you still had a feeling that Manchester United were going to come back. So that was nice. Is that possible, or is that less likely now, given that fans are back? Can we expect that this year, or is that something that might be a bit too far with fans being back in the stadium?
I don't see why not. I don't see why the fans would make that much of a difference.
I think it's the atmosphere, isn't it? If you go 1-0 down, and then certain players may not be used to that kind of pressure of the stadium's bouncing, we're collapsing, all that kind of stuff. That might be the problem.
I think it has more to do with the United players' character and resilience than it does. I mean, it definitely did help not having fans be able to G up the home team, and we were able to sort of take advantage of that. But I think we got a lot more steady heads, more experienced heads in this team, which is the reason why we would always come back. Like Cavani was a big one in the Southampton game last year.
Back in training,
he dragged us back into that game, and it's people like that. Harry Maguire. I mean, people slagged him off a lot last year, but he's a steady head. He's a great leader in that team. It's people and personalities like that that create teams like that that come back and bounce back, I think. And I think Man United team that Ollie's building right now is full of them characters at the moment. With Bruno, Varane, Maguire, even the likes of Shaw, Cavani. It's a team that's built around not just ability but characters and personality too.
Do you think Sancho and Varane will start on Sunday?
I think Sancho will start. I think he might stick with Maguire and Lindelof.
I think Sancho played in the week as well against Burnley, and he did come on last week. I think it's probably enough time. He probably should start. If he doesn't, there would be realistic questions as to, okay, why is he not starting now? He's had 2 weeks of training. He's played minutes last week and minutes in the week. Varane, I mean, it's been 5 days, but I'm just very keen on getting him in straight away.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I want that partnership to be really, truly formed.
I don't think he will. I hope he does. I hope he does. I just see him, especially with a back two, and after the performance against Leeds, I believe he'll stick with Lindelof and Maguire. But yeah, I absolutely hope he start with Varane and Maguire.
Ginge, as someone that's played in midfield before, does the criticism that sometimes Scott McTominay gets from Manchester United fans, is that unfair, do you think?
I think it is unfair, and I'm still not really sure about it, because there's something about him that I'm just not sure that he's, whether it's the consistency. I'm not really sure. I don't watch all United's games, but I don't know if he's quite got that consistency level yet, where some games he seems to be really in. You can see he's up for it, just the way he's playing. He's really aggressive, really forward thinking, and then other games he sort of just sits on the back. He sort of takes on the back foot all the time. He doesn't look like he's as confident. I think so. I think a lot of it is harsh, but I think he is still quite young, and I think he does, when he's on it, he certainly makes United a better team. But
yeah, well, he was excellent last weekend, it must be said. I mean, I think if you're a coach and you want someone to follow the game plan, people like Scott McTominay follow the game plan to a T. I think that's important, so especially in big games. But I think it's harsh. I mean, some people
he's getting stronger and stronger. Isn't
I think so. I think so. He's growing. He's certainly growing into it. And Solskjaer's not the only coach now to say that they like him.
Yeah.
The talking point would be about people like Fred. I mean, if you're going to pick McTominay or Fred, you would pick McTominay.
Yeah, I don't think
Fred went that bad, too far.
I don't think you need both of them, though. I think that's maybe where a lot of the negativity is coming from, is because they have both of them playing a lot of the time together. And I mean, they're not bad. They don't play badly together, but I don't think in most games they don't really need those two.
I think
you could get away with one and then play a slightly different system. Maybe bring Pogba in, because he usually plays wider, doesn't he?
Wide left, yeah.
Maybe you bring him in alongside, Fernandes and have it as a flat three, or McTominay sitting and then have them two just roaming around. But it obviously depends on the opponent, doesn't it? I guess, essentially.
I would say, I think once they get that partnership with Varane and Maguire, there's more potential of that happening.
That was
having a solid back two that he believes in. And Pogba out on the left, I don't think necessarily a problem. I think it works well.
I agree. I mean, why would you take him out away from there, considering he's getting goals and assists?
It also, with the way that, because obviously he naturally drifts inside, which just frees up so much space for Shaw to exploit, and which he's fantastic at. Yeah. But that system does seem to work. But yeah, no, I think Ginger. I think they might drop out someone like Fred and sit McTominay as just a holding midfielder once he has more belief within his back four.
Yeah, that's been the narrative, hasn't it, the last couple of years, is that the reason McTominay and Fred play so often is because Solskjaer doesn't trust Lindelof and Maguire as a back two. He thinks if they're exposed, they're not good enough to deal with it, which I think is probably fair, which is probably a fair statement. The thing is, though, I don't think, and I mentioned this on the stream I did earlier today, is that I don't think he would be willing to change that at Southampton away, on the second game of the season with the first crowd back in St. Mary's for 18 months, because that's a risky time to go, okay, we're going to do something different in terms of the formation today.
Is it a risky time to start Varane then in that case?
Maybe, but I don't know, because you can still play the same formation and play Varane.
It's a lot of pressure. I know I'm saying a lot of pressure on Varane. He's a World Cup winner, but
yeah,
it is a lot of pressure. I mean, a lot of people, especially opposing fans, have got their eyes on him. They want him to fail. Certainly. But I like you said, I think he would be more than able to deal with it. It's just a case of whether or not physically he would be ready. But I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't be, put it that way. I mean, he did a little bit of training whilst he was still at Madrid. Obviously, he lost a couple of weeks of the preseason, but it's the thing, when people go, yeah, but he was quarantined. It's not a case if he was doing nothing in quarantine. Yeah.
People just assume that, he's sitting up, watching TV and ice cream. It's like, no, he's still on the bike every day. I'm sure Man United was very much in communication of trying to get something going. It's just a case whether 5 days is enough. The problem is, with a centre-back, it's not like Sancho last week where it's 5 days, you go, yeah, you can bring him on last 15 minutes. You either play a centre-back or you don't. It's that, isn't it? So I don't know.
I think he's ready, to be honest. I think it's better just to not play him in that situation. I think you need more than a week's training, I think, to come into a game like that. He's a quality player and he probably could do it, but I don't think it's necessarily needed.
Yeah, I don't think it's a risk worth taking, is it? There's too many risks of him being ready and it failing.
Well, I think we win. I think we win whether he plays or not. I think we should win whether he plays or not. I just don't want
him to get him off to a shaky start, which I don't think he will, but it's just that risk.
No, I mean, the game after that, the following week, is Wolves away. So, I mean, you could argue about maybe that's an even more difficult game, but he would be physically maybe more ready for that point. Maybe we would need him more. Maybe we need him more.
Premier League, isn't it? Exactly. Any game's going to be a test, isn't it? So And we're talking about someone of Varane's caliber, so
Yeah,
United scored like 12 goals against Southampton last year, wasn't it? 9-0 the other game.
It was
Yeah.
9-0.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
a free. I mean, he got sent off after, what was it, like 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's
Old
like young
Trafford.
lad, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
He's
So,
now gone. He's now gone.
yeah, I don't think that will happen
Although
again.
that was a bit naive from Southampton, wasn't it? They got sent off in the first minute, but they didn't really approach the game properly after that.
Yeah, well, it was a bit like we said with Liverpool last year in the case of they went down to 10 men and it was a case of sometimes these modern coaches only know one way of playing. The days of adapting of like, okay, we're going to play a different way, or that's what made Conte so great at Chelsea. It wasn't working. He went, right, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to switch to a different system. And sometimes like those kind of coaches like Klopp or like Hasenhüttl, where they're so like pressing, or even Bielsa, there is just this sheer refusal I'm not going to change how I play. If I'm down to 10 men, if I'm losing 4-0, 5-0, whatever, I'm going to play the exact same way. And they just carry on doing that and they concede goals, which is, then it gets embarrassing. But even though it gets embarrassing, they get commended. Oh, good for you. Good for you that you carried on.
Do you think he'll ever get sacked, Hasenhüttl? He's got to be like on the back of like some of the worst results in history.
But I don't think he's a bad coach. I don't think he came runners up in the Bundesliga, did he? Leipzig. Yeah. I was surprised he went to Southampton in the first place.
They were top in November last year, weren't they? They had an absolutely terrible run.
Terrible run of games. But to be honest, I just don't think their squad's worse than it was last season. And they barely stayed in the Premier League last year. They came 15th, but they just fell off the charts completely.
They were lucky they had that good start, really.
Exactly. That's what saved them.
Relegated.
Yeah.
That's what saved them. So I don't know. I don't know what they can really say in this. Southampton win 3-0, but you never know.
Hasenhüttl, I think, is the key to that. The key to Southampton. I think rather than a player, as you say, they're a very mechanical team. It's all about Hasenhüttl. It's not all about one particular player you'd pick out for Southampton, or maybe Ward-Prowse with his free kicks. But yeah, very mechanical. If you take a cog out of those teams, it can often lead to the complete destruction and falling off the rails. But yeah, Hasenhüttl's the top manager, I think.
I do want to talk about Man City briefly before we go into Poogate Volume 2, which is what everyone's tuning in for. But Man City, they play Norwich at 3:00. It's a layup for City. They'll win, obviously. But Chrissy, what did you make of all of that stuff that we've seen over the course of the last week? Obviously, the Harry Kane stuff carries on. But is it a bit of a... I don't know. Myself personally, it just doesn't sit right with me that they can be like, yeah, if you had Harry Kane, we would have won that game. You had the most expensive lineup ever. You should be winning anyway. Right? I know values don't mean everything, but is that just a bit of a ridiculous statement to make by Man City or the Man City fans? The one of them, just one. There's only one.
But I thought there's plastic chairs, to be honest, the old Man City fans. Yeah. But Yeah, no. To be fair, I did think it is a bit of a ridiculous statement because like we said on the last episode, they had £550 million worth of players starting, the most expensive lineup in football history, not just Premier League history, and obviously add an extra £350 million on the bench. They should be finding goals with the amount of money they spent. I mean, I know Barnes joked about it last episode, but somehow Nathan Ake was involved in the most expensive lineup. I mean, how they bought him for 40 million, I don't know. I mean, Bournemouth must have been laughing to the bank. Obviously, they weren't laughing at the end because they got relegated. But yeah, no, they should have. They had enough money, they had enough talent. They should have been finding goals. But obviously, it's interesting the whole Harry Kane saga because obviously I'm looking at rumours now that apparently they're not going to go for Harry Kane. They're going to go for this striker from Fiorentina. I can't really pronounce his name. It begins with a V. So just Google Fiorentina striker begin with a V if you want to find out who he is. And that, but I mean, obviously that guy would be a cheaper option. But would he bring the same caliber of? Well, let's face it, he wouldn't bring the same caliber as a Harry Kane would. But
it does show an element of desperation from Man City.
It does. It's almost like, we need a striker. Oh, no, Daniel Levy ain't budging. We're going to get this guy from Fiorentina. We really need a striker. I mean, they should have really sorted this earlier on in the window, to be honest.
That guy's agent's been pulling a mad one, though, isn't he? Because that guy's been linked with like every club in Europe, pretty much. He was linked with Real Madrid last week, linked with Man City this week. It's like he must be out there all the time talking, trying to get him.
Hasn't he signed a new contract? That mysterious man from Fiorentina with a name beginning with V. I think he might have signed a contract today or yesterday.
I don't know. They offered him a new deal, didn't they? But I don't know if he signed it, but I know I just remember reading the news and like but now it's City now, surprisingly, at the end of it all.
Barnes, irrespective of last week's result, I mean, did you pick Man City to win the league this season? I think most people did.
No.
You didn't?
I picked Chelsea.
Pick Chelsea. Well, irrespective of last week's result, can Man City still win the league this season?
I don't think they can. If they don't sign a striker, I'm not saying it has to be Kane, whoever it is, I don't think they can win the league this season. I don't think they can go in with Gabriel Jesus as their mainline striker. I mean, I'm sure Pep can play, a number of players. Ake will probably end up front, be doing all sorts of weird formations, overthinking it to try and shove someone in that position as he does. But I genuinely do not think they can win the league unless they sign a striker. I completely agree with Chris makes a really good point about, I think Manchester City, their image of the club at the moment or the last few years, they're very on it. They're very controlled. They seem to have a plan. They know what they're doing when it comes to transfers. They offer that money and it's there. The deal's done. And I think I'm surprised that they haven't already signed a player in that position. And I think the whole Kane saga is very un-Manchester City. Even signing Jack Grealish, I know they have expensive lineups, but they tend to sign people around 50 million, tends to be 55 million. But to go out and blow 100 million on Grealish and then another probably 100 plus million on Kane is very un-Manchester City, which I think, as to your point, Owen, it does sort of strike of desperation. Maybe they really need to win that Champions League or whatever. But I'm surprised at their lack of preparedness coming into this season.
I mean, I think it's desperation. And to be honest, I think it's probably, and you could probably touch on this as well, Leif, I think it's almost a bit of arrogance in the sense that, Harry Kane will come. They'll accept it in the end. We got the money. Like, so Grace, he'll come. And the problem is that, especially with someone like Daniel Levy, if you show a bit of arrogance, he'll just be like, no, I'm not going to sell him. I don't care if I've made promises. Who cares? People hate me anyway. So I don't care. I mean, look, they've still got a very good squad and they've still got lots of good players. But I mean, as a Manchester United fan, Leif, it's just so ironic, isn't it? Because they always say that we spend badly and all this kind of stuff, but they've got all of these players, which any club, any side, especially these big sides, any of these big sides would be so happy to have, and they're kind of whinging because we don't have a striker. It makes you sort of think, come on, you still got a lot of good players. That's what we get as Manchester United fans all the time. You still got lots of good players. So why aren't you going to be playing very well? I mean, what do you think about City?
Yeah, I don't think we got to be careful not to jump the gun. Like they lost one game to Spurs. I think they don't. If I remember rightly, they didn't start that well last year.
No, they were slow.
A shaky start.
No. Yeah.
So we can't write them off. Yeah, they'll definitely still be up there. But yeah, they need to sign a striker. It's like I said in one of the previous podcasts, they needed a striker when they had Aguero and Jesus. So without Aguero, who's arguably one of the best strikers in Premier League history, Jesus just isn't enough. They desperately need a striker. I still think they will get Kane. I think that Levy will sell eventually. I just think it would be right down to the wire.
Doesn't that leave Spurs a problem about bringing people in, or do you reckon he'll do that at the same time? Maybe that's what they're doing now.
He must have something, because I think Man City will get to the point where they will pay what he wants if it does get to that point, and there must be a backup plan going already. He's a clever businessman. He's done it in past with certain signings, and he will have something lined up. But like you said, he wouldn't want to leave that right to the last day. I still think Kane will go, but mainly because Man City desperately need him.
Ginge, what do you think? Do you think Harry Kane will end up signing with City?
I think he will. Whether it's this window or the next, I'm not entirely sure, because it really does depend on whether Spurs dig their heels in or whether they literally just get to the point where they look at it and go, this is a lot of money,
What do you think will go in January?
Potentially. I mean, I think he's more likely to go at the minute because of all the media coverage and all that sort of stuff surrounding it. I think it might the pressure on Tottenham to accept it and reinvest is maybe quite high. But I think because maybe fans have lost some of the faith in Kane. I'm not really sure. I don't really know. Maybe it's split halfway in terms of people that want him to stay and people that actually want to get the money and reinvest. I don't really know, but considering what they've done with the Bale money, I think there's got to be a little bit of a worry that it might not work, because out of all those signings, it was Eriksen that was the only one that really was a success.
Yeah,
not Capoue. Come on,
or Soldado. Come on,
Soldado. What about Churches?
Exactly.
it is a risk. And I think I did mention it. I think Tottenham would be okay without Kane. I think they still got Son, who's
well. I know it was
player.
it was a very different side, but they lost last night in that Europa Conference League.
Pacos Ferreira.
I know,
Yeah.
which is tremendous. But to be honest with you, I know people go, it's a very, it was a very strange changed team rather. But that should still beat Pacos for like that's the size. Some of the players, Brian Gill was playing in that game. There were players that were playing in that game.
Romero as well, the new centre back.
Exactly. That's maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe their season's peaked already. Finally, I do want to talk about Poogate Volume 2. Yes,
Volume 2, baby.
Yeah, this is the one that I think everyone's been waiting for. This is what we made you wait 50 minutes for. Is Poogate Volume 2. Leify, you're here to defend yourself. First of all,
defend myself from what?
Well, first of all, you can confirm yes or no. Did you poo by the stairs in your?
I can confirm
building?
I did not poo.
But
I do have a toilet in that same building.
But you found the poo.
I found the poo. I might not have been the first one to find the poo, but I'd had a bit of a heavy session.
Yeah.
I would say, and after the United game, and this is part of the reason why some people accuse me straight away of doing the poo
and just not remembering.
No, because I was in a state. This is me in the Angel after the Man United game, dribbling with excitement for the coming season. But yeah, no, I didn't do the poo. I poo in the toilet or in my trousers, not in a stairwell. I'm not some sort of sick freak.
Yeah, smart.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, but
yeah.
You've also mentioned that several people in the building, irrespective of your denial, still think it was you.
I'm not saying. I don't know that.
Well, you said everyone's looking at me like I did it.
Yeah, because I was outside and having a cigarette. I was still a little bit tipsy. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. Says a lot about my lifestyle. And yeah, people would look. The guy that was downstairs kind of looking at me. And if you shout, I didn't do that poo.
Yeah.
People think that you did the poo.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think
especially when they haven't even seen the poo yet.
Yeah. Yeah, you can smell it.
And especially when it's no one that's actually been in the building, it's just people walking past on the street.
It's mysterious.
I didn't do that poo. All right.
To think, because you need a code to get into this flat complex. So someone must have known the code. If it was one of the residents, we do have toilets in the flats. They are pretty posh flats. They do have toilets.
Was the door on the latch though? Could it have possibly still been open?
It could have potentially. Then you're talking to some poo chancer just running around trying doors.
Maybe
just for a poo. There's literally a garage next door. You could just put in that. It doesn't make sense. I think it's someone's guest who's left, and
that's what I said. The wandering guest was the phrase the theory that I preferred. But
I did have a couple of guests that night, and but I walked them out the door, so I could confirm it was not them either. Dan Buckley.
Well, I like the idea. I like the idea that you said before we went on the air. You said the position of it, and this is something I hadn't considered. That somebody could have been actually on the banister leaning over.
The poo was in a narrow bit, like the bottom of the stairs, just in off the banister. So either someone scooted in backwards.
Yeah, because it's a small gap.
It's a small gap. Or my theory, which is a pretty good theory, is they perched over the banister and pooed down into the gap. That's then
very deliberate. That's very deliberate.
It could have been some people pissing about and
going
shit down the stairwell. All them fun Saturday night vibes.
Exactly. The interesting thing though that we found out before we went on the air as well should be pointed out. This is where suddenly, shockingly, Barnes becomes a suspect, even though he was nowhere near the vicinity. Nowhere near.
Nowhere near.
Yeah, but
I don't even know where Leify lives.
Yeah, but the reason he is a suspect,
you're a liar.
Exactly, a liar and a shitter, right? And they go together, lying shitter.
Yeah.
The reason why Barnes is a suspect is because this happened to him when he was at university. So, tell the story.
Explain yourself.
The first thing I want to say is that Josh Leify thinks a flat is posh because it has a toilet.
I did think that, but didn't say anything.
Why are you saying
right? It's very posh here. We have toilets.
Showers, sinks, carpets,
doors. We have doors and a carpet.
We have doors, walls. We have walls.
We have a window.
That's a nice segue into the story, I suppose, because this house that we lived in, it was in a bit of a rough area. It was a very student house. It was I'm not even sure it did have carpets. It was a very poor house. Anyway, there were these two these are who I think it was. It's two strange men who used to hang around outside. We had sort of like an outdoor patio. So this wasn't inside. Didn't need a code or anything to access our property. And they used to just smoke outside our door, like literally 1 yard outdoor. So you walk in the door, you're like, hello, strange men, and then just walk in the door. Anyway, we all came back in after one night out, and there was a poo, again, a definite human poo left on the porch on the outside, right next to our door. So yeah, similar. I feel for you, Leafy. I feel.
Were you targeted?
That feels like very deliberate.
Yeah.
That feels very.
Is it some sort of ex-girlfriend or something?
Not of mine, but there was some suspect characters in that house, though. It's very possible.
So
very possible.
The strange men. So the theory there in that one, this is why it comes into Poogate Volume 2, because this might be a serial offender here, cross country, right? Is that these strange men, who very could be the same people that did it in Leif's building, like to smoke and shit at the same time on doorsteps.
Interesting
Could
theory.
it have been Josh Leafy? Could my poo have been Josh Leafy?
Where were you?
Because Josh Leafy does like to smoke and shit at the same time. It does come back
There
around.
we go.
Don't be shouting that.
I like smoke.
I don't. I like to smoke, but not shit at the same time. I like to do both. I like to do them things separately,
Right.
because it kind of ruins a cigarette if you shit. Or poo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
we dropped the shit like 10 times.
Oh, did we? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, don't matter. Yeah, I just think it's a very and there was the other thing I wanted to bring up with you, Leif, was that there's something involving takeaway menus.
Yeah, well, that was So the takeaway menus had been stuffed underneath the stairs. A certain takeaway place around it called Ahmed's, and they'd used that as toilet paper.
The podcast.
Yeah, big up Ahmed. So yeah, they'd used So it was a mess. It was a complete mess down there.
But Ed floated the theory that the person, because this didn't make any sense to me, tried to clear it up with the takeaway thing.
I think they cleaned their ass with the takeaway.
Right.
With the takeaway menus.
Right.
I think that's true. I don't think they tried to clear that up with dog.
Clear that up with it.
But then if they're so keen on being like, I've got to clean myself up, then surely they're the type of person to be like, why am I shitting on the floor if I'm that interested in cleanliness? Find a toilet.
Yeah, I mean, if you're shut on the floor, don't worry about wiping your ass.
No, exactly.
Just crack on.
Yeah. It's a very strange situation, but I think that's the best way to end today's podcast. Is just crack on. If you're gonna shit on the floor, crack on. And
what is it? Actually, just floated the theory as well.
Yeah. So potentially
we got to clear this up.
Potentially, we might have a suspect. If on the next podcast, Ash, you want to bring in some kind of drawing of these two mysterious smoking men that are smoking, not smoking as in sexy men
on fire.
If you want to bring in a drawing of these two potential suspects, then we might be able to get into Poogate Volume 3. Yes, so that's undecided right now.
Let's wait and see.
Wait and see. Well, it happened over a weekend. What would you do realistically, Leif? Let's be dead serious here.
Let's be serious.
Because it happened on a Saturday, right?
Oh, Sunday.
It happened Saturday-ish, yeah. What happens if Sunday morning it's there again or something similar?
Oh, wow. Is that? Oh, so this is the next weekend, yeah. Well, I don't know. What do you want me to do? What I'm going to do?
I don't know.
Yeah, take all the menus out just in case. Just leave some.
Why didn't? Put some takeaway menus out.
It. Just leave the door open ajar.
Yeah, leave the door open ajar. Put in some kind of
toilet paper.
Yeah, toilet paper and a mouse trap.
A mouse trap. Yeah. Wow. If it happens again, then. Can you call the police? I don't know. Can you call the police for a poo?
I would think so. I would at that point. I would probably think so.
Well, yeah,
that's an issue.
It's a biohazard as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that is an issue. There is someone every weekend that is coming in and shitting on the property.
Who's letting them in?
Yeah, is it you? You're leaving the door open on the latch to tempt them.
Yeah. Well, let's wait and see.
I mean, is it technically classed as vandalising property by like?
I think so. I would think so. Destruction of property.
The dirty guy is what it is. There you go.
But anyway, we'll leave it there. Poogate Volume 2 is it's It's really trending worldwide at this point. We had to get through the football topics first.
Football podcast.
But I mean, this is what's going to take us to the next level. Is Poogate? I think this is the money. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching or listening. However you've come across this day. If you're on the YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe. Bottom right hand corner, smash a like on the video as well. And also, if you do have any more theories about Poogate, let us know. There were several comments.
Let me know.
There were several theories last time. They're always very interesting to hear and read. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to follow and put a review as well. 5 stars. That's what we're looking for. For Poogate.
Tell anyone to keep, by the way, grow up. Just grow up.
I mean, you say grow up. I did a stream the other day on United View, and I don't have the actual verbatim line in front of me, but it was along the lines of, Owen looks like a guy that auditioned for Harry Potter, but ended up being cast as a Gryffindor extra.
Accurate. No,
it's true.
Okay, we'll see you later. We'll end the broadcast. We'll cut that all out.
See you later.